Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and today I want to talk about just the power that words can have over us. Something very recent that happened is there was some drama that came up within my life, within my family, and it had some far reaching impacts. We had someone who was very upset and reached out in probably not the best way, just through text to voice their concerns, to voice their frustration, to voice their anger. And what I experienced from that was, for one thing, it was very disrupting. Now, this individual had every right to be frustrated. This individual had every right to voice their concern. And yet, the choice of words was not the greatest in the moment. They were very emotionally charged. This message was sent out likely just minutes after they had they had heard from someone else what was going on. And I apologize in advance if this is sounding very cryptic. I'm trying to respect and honor the members of my family who were involved in this and not to just completely outright throw them under the bus and yet use this experience as an example of just how our words are impactful. So, Libby and I were just sitting down to play some Phasmophobia with our friends John and Dan. Libby is still recovering from some illness that got her, and she was feeling lousy over this weekend. It was a very, very weird illness that really got into her sinuses and into her throat, stayed out of her chest, but she has just been coughing. She's felt miserable. And this happened to be a weekend where we were not gaming. We were not getting together with our friends. And Libby was feeling miserable. And she's like, you know what? She reached out to John and Dan and was like, I really would like to just spend some time with friends playing Phasmophobia and feel better from everything that's been going on here, which is kind of amusing considering that our friend John had even pointed out that, I wouldn't have expected the game Phasmophobia to be one that you would relax to. But it was a game that Libby wanted to play. And we have a lot of fun hunting down and identifying ghosts in this game with our friends. So we are just sitting down to play, and we receive a series of text messages that are very emotionally charged, very angry, and wanting to call us out on bullshit within the family, and to a certain degree, even guilt us in how we were harming someone else in the family because there is a very important life event that is taking place. I have an individual in my family who is going to be graduating. And, well, Libby and I can't make the trip. We looked over it. Things have been so uncertain. Finances haven't exactly been the greatest. And there's so much in the air that we are just like, we really can't do much more besides just take things one day at a time. And I was honest in my response, just saying, I don't know what bullshit you're talking about here, but this is where we're at. And I'm sorry this is hurting some feelings, but we are going through what we're going through, and we do not have the time and money to take an out of state trip, really. This really got under my skin. It got under Libby's skin. And it wasn't just ours that this impacted, because this came in a group message. I have another family member who responded and had some very powerful and at the same time gentle words to share. And I had to send a response where I'm like, I'm just in awe of how you responded to that. It was so good. And while I'm in the middle of playing Phasmophobia with friends, I get a call from this family member. And he starts talking with me about the situation, just kind of describing what was going on, what I knew about it. They were sharing what they knew about it. And while I'm in the middle of this conversation, I get a call from another family member. And after I get done talking with one, I call the other and effectively give some free therapy because this other family member was terribly disgruntled by what was going on. Terribly disgruntled. And we all felt like we had to walk on eggshells and tiptoe around in order to not make matters worse. Thankfully, I had this time with Libby and John and Dan to return to in order to just release what was going on. How John and Dan got a bit of an earful as I was sharing with them what was going on. And then the following day, so this happened on a Sunday, and the following Monday, my dad, who is preparing to sell his place up here, he and my stepmom, they are spending more time in Arizona, and it's difficult to maintain two homes, especially one the size that they have here, and they're wanting to downsize. So they're wanting to sell and get rid of a lot of things that they don't need anymore. And they have been so gracious in gifting us some furniture and decorations. And I mean, a Libby got an ottoman that is just full of yarn that she has grand plans with. And after an incredibly busy day, I go over to my dad's to help him load up his truck with some of the things that he was giving to Libby. And we come back over here, drop things off in the garage, and then while just standing around in the garage, my dad said some of the most powerful words to me. And he looked at Libby and I and he said, "You know, I I wish that more of our family were like you two. You guys are so relaxed and so understanding. You guys don't really fly off the handle and send these venomous text messages, things of that nature. And if there is conflict, we talk about it. We talk about it in compassionate we talk about it with compassion and curiosity. I cannot tell you how much that is still impacting me today. Just those words that my dad gave me. I thanked him for sharing that. And he said they came from the heart. I have shared that with every single one of my friends. I got together with Ben and I had to tell him what my dad had said. We played games with John and Dan later, and I had to tell them, hey, you remember what was going on and how you heard what was being said here? Well, here's something else that just came up. And John, being the absolute sweetheart that he is, had said, you know what? And I mirror those words 100%. Now, there also was a time when I wouldn't have really accepted those words. And I've done a lot of work in order to open myself up to receiving these affirmations and these positive messages instead of just allowing the negative ones to nest within me. And I am feeling so good, uplifted, and inspired because of what my dad said. I am feeling so uplifted and received and noticed by John's affirmation of it, and Dan as well. It is so humbling to hear from a patriarchal figure in our family that Libby and I are some of the people that he wishes that others modeled their lives after. Considering that everything I've gone through, considering all of the struggles I've had and the difficulties I've had with my family in the past, this was something incredible and incredibly powerful. And I cannot thank my dad enough for this affirmation and just speaking these very kind and generous words over Libby and me. There is that old saying that the pen is mightier than the sword. And I would even go so far as to say that the pen isn't even the mightiest thing out there. It's our voice, because the pen can write down what we say and what we think. And the true power comes from speaking what we think and what we value. My dad has done so much more to bless me, even, than just giving away some of the stuff that they can't take down to Arizona with them. And that is a huge blessing. That really is a huge blessing. As someone who very much values giving and receiving gifts, what my dad and my stepmom are doing is a huge blessing to me. And for someone who has really struggled with receiving words from other people, I have just experienced a very, just a very moving and impactful push with these words that my dad gave me and gave to Libby. This is the power of our words. Our words have the power to tear us down when we ridicule, when we blame, when we guilt, when we shame. They can tear us down. They can tear others down. Even if we have the best of intentions, our words can cause very real harm. In fact, I remember growing up, I guess as a child in the 80s and 90s, it was very common to hear sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And that has been one of the most fallacious statements I have ever heard. As growing up, I tried really hard to not allow people's words to harm me, and yet there was some very real harm that was being done to my ego, to my sexuality, to my masculinity, to my mental health. It is important for us to know the harm and the healing that can be done with our lips, with our tongue, with our voice, and with our words. Going back to a much earlier example in my marriage, I remember Libby always struggled with her body image, and she did not like the way that she looked in the mirror. And I remember being very, very intentional about telling her all of the things that I liked about her. And I would tell her how beautiful she is, how sexy she is. I would come up and give her hugs, and I would give her kisses and tell her how much I loved her, how much I valued her, how beautiful and attractive I found her. And I don't even remember how long I was doing this, but it was something that took time and it took a lot of intentionality. And then just seeing the change that happened in Libby this one night, she was looking at herself in the mirror and she was making comments about some of her physical features, about being overweight. And there was some more of that body shaming going on. And then after she got done saying all of that, she stopped and she said, "But at least you find me attractive. Like, I'm glad that you find me attractive." I was in shock when I heard her say that. I'd never heard her say anything like that before. And that was a big deal for her and for me. If we move away from statements of guilt and condemnation and shame and judgment and ridicule and hate, and we instead turn our words to words of compassion and curiosity and empathy and love and grace, instead of tearing people down around us and tearing ourselves down, we can instead heal and lift other people up. That is the power that we have with our words. I have felt so loved because of what my dad said. I have felt so accepted by the words of my friends and of Libby. After all of this played out, before I heard these words from my dad, I sent out a text message to Ben and Brandon and was just letting them know, man, there's some tough family drama going on here. I don't need anything right now other than to just tell you I am so, so glad that I have you guys in my life and that you're my chosen family. This is one of those very interesting things. We don't have any choice over the family that we're born into. Your biological family is going to be whatever it is. And yet, we do have a choice over who we choose to be our family. And I love most of my family. Well, okay, I'll be honest. I do love my family, period. There are some members of my family that are just harder for me to be around, and we bristle against each other, but I still love them. And yet, it is my chosen family that I make more of a priority for, not because I resent my family. I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for my biological family. And yet, I would not be the hero that I am today on the journey that I'm walking to be the hero, to be the protagonist in my own story, to use my voice as I am, if it weren't for my chosen family. Because these are people who We have our ups and downs like we do with any relationship. And yet, these are the people who I find myself much more uplifted by and even a priority. And it's something that I give in return. I make them a priority. While my dad is up here in Washington State, I try my best to make him a priority. I am trying to make it more of a priority to spend time with friends and family that I don't really get to see all that often. Even though we live like 20 minutes away from each other, I'm trying to do what I can in order to decrease that distance that I have. And yet, when I receive messages that are trying to guilt and shame me into doing something because someone else is struggling to handle their emotions, those are not the people I'm going to choose to spend time with. And it's something that I don't need to choose to spend time with these people. I don't need it. In some cases, again, I love these people because they're my family, but I don't want to be around them. It's challenging. And some of what happens reinforces trauma that I've experienced. And I don't need nor want to put myself in those traumatic experiences. I still have a lot of work. Everyone in my family still has a lot of work in developing these good relationships and good communication. The more I practice giving loving, curious, and compassionate words to others and doing what I can to lift them up instead of trying to bring people down, the better the relationships we're going to have. And I will take my dad's words and hold them in my heart. And I hope to remember them for as long as I can. I know how this thing is in my skull. It's not always the best at remembering these things. It's really good at finding evidence to the contrary. But again, hearing from my dad, those powerful words spoken from his heart of how he wished more of his family were like myself and like Libby. Those words are so sweet. They're so uplifting. And I'm so grateful. So grateful for how my dad has invested in me in this area. I hope you've been inspired to use your words to help people, to lift them up, because that is the power that you have. We do have the power to either tear people down or to build them up. And I personally choose to help build people up. And until next time, live strong for today.